there, I'm Shannon Willits. I'm the owner of Club Pilates in Fort Myers and in Estero and in Cape Coral. I'm also a master trainer for Club Pilates. I'm also a master trainer for relief through rolling, and I'm a level 2 melt method instructor. So I love foam rolling. Foam rolling has had a really nice update. We no longer brutalize people with our foam rollers. I'm sure some of you can resonate with this. Back in the day in the gym, you know, you would be rolling out your IT band, and right there it's like you're rolling and it's like, oh, it's so excruciating. Well, what we know is that there's a nerve bundle there, so you kind of don't want to roll over the nerve bundle. So we no longer iron out those fascial tissues. Maybe we do something at the knee or something at the hip to affect the IT band. So today in Alignment Matters, I want to talk about the head, neck, and shoulders. And at Club Pilates, we teach a format. It's a restore format. It's restorative. We call it the Pilates massage. And in that class, we do half of the class on the foam roller or utilizing soft balls to create a softening of the connective tissues, the fascial system, right? The nerves that are in the fascial system. So it really calms down the nervous system so that in the second half of the class, we can, quote, repattern the alignment and the movement patterns. And so that's really critical when working with the body, trying to reorganize the alignment, that we also repattern with strength and stability, core-focused movements. That's how you get the rolling to hold. And that's important. My friend Dr. Engel, he's an upper cervical chiropractor, he says, holding is healing. And I couldn't agree more. So today I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools and just talk about the head, neck, and shoulders. So I've worked with a lot of women, men and women, but a lot of women who work at a desk, right? And it's a classic story. We all, you know, mostly sit in our American lifestyles. And I always say, this is not your fault when I talk to people about this, because it just is what it is, right? So you think about sitting at a desk, and I'm sitting up really straight, my pelvis is vertical, my spine is neutral, right? Let me show you so I don't have to turn my head. So you can see that I have an upright posture. Well, what happens is, you know, we start thinking about work. We might have one, maybe two screens. Our mouse is over here or over here. You've got drawers here. And so what ends up happening is we end up looking like this, right? And so it's a classic thing. I see it all the time. If you look at my neck right now, you can see that the muscles here are extremely prominent and very contracted, just because my head is sitting extremely forward of my shoulder girdle. And so gravity is pulling me down, classic situation. You know, the other thing about that is you just leave work and you get in the car and you're in the same situation, right? You get out of the car, you get up, you go and sit down at the dinner table, and guess what? You're in the same situation. So how are we going to get out of it, right? So number one, we have to offset it with movement. So that's critical, right? Getting you up, standing you up. But there's other things that we can do, particularly at Club Pilates, we do restore. So in restore, we use these soft rollers and balls to elicit a softening of the tissues to then repattern the muscle movement and contraction. So with the head and neck, it's really critical that we totally address the thoracic spine. I mean, it's a huge part of the spine. And so putting a soft foam roller into the thoracic spine and into the rib cage can certainly free up the tissues around the shoulder. This is the first step, right? So go to the larger areas. But we can do a lot more soft, little intrinsic work with the hands. And if we think about the hands, right, we're using the hands much like the feet. They're very sensory. There's a ton of nerves in there because they really are reading their brain, right? So when we use these smaller, soft tools, we can work a lot more specifically and most certainly in the hands, right? The hands are highly sensory. The nerves that come from the neck come into the hands, so there's a direct feed up that way and down that way. So by using these smaller tools, we can have an indirect effect on the head carriage and the placement of the shoulder joint. It's really profoundly effective and it is extremely simple. So I'm just going to give you a little demo on how that might look. So if you were to come to a workshop at Club Pilates, a Restore workshop, you might do something like this. So the first ball that I'm going to use is this larger ball. The thing I want you to note is that it's soft, right? It's squishy. So that makes it nice because it's going to be pliable and you can affect the tissues in the hands just by passing it back and forth. When you're doing this, it's good to notice, is one hand stronger than the other? Most likely, if that's the case, well, there's not as good of an information highway coming back and forth from the neck to the hand. So that's your weak side. Definitely want to see if we can, neurologically get it to wake up so that when you strength train, you'll have better access. And there's a lot of data on that. This has been proven. So with this ball, pass it back and forth, you give it some squeeze, my right hand, and I'm right-handed, this one is the weaker side today. This is today. So I'm just gonna do some little compressions in the palm. And I want you to just notice that I'm just leaning my body weight onto the ball. I'm in the palm of my hand. I'm just giving it a little bit of compression. No big deal. I'm not pumping it out like the course I just took in CPR. So nothing like that. I'm just shifting my body weight forward and back. So I'm bringing in sensory information into my palm, which is going to come up to my shoulder and my neck. I'm going to do the other side just because you can go back and forth with your hands. And it's super easy. You can do this at the breakfast table. That's what I do. I usually do my hands and feet with my coffee. If you've listened to my videos, you've heard me tell you that before. So that's a really, really nice ball. This other ball here, so it's a smaller ball and it's very soft. You can see it's super squishy. I love this ball. And so what I'm going to do is decompress these knuckles, my fingers. And so I've got my nails, so don't worry, I won't break a nail. But I'm just going to press down. And so these joints are in a flexed position. So it's a stretch, believe it or not, on those joints. And then I'm going to press down that way. And those joints are now in an extended position. So flexion, extension, just like we do with our spine, just like we do with our shoulders, just like we do with everything, right? Same thing, flex, extend, and you can see how fast I can go now. The thumb is the one that's always the sticky one. Flex, extend, you see, right? Super easy. Have a ball like this in your car and do it at the light. This spot right here, so right there, this tends to be a very sensitive area. I like to say that this is the joint that makes you a human being, right? There's your thumb. But this spot right here, I call this the headache spot. It's fascinating if I get a client who comes in, she's like, oh, I have a migraine today, Shannon. I'm like, okay, well, let's just do a little hand release. That spot right there, when we get to that spot, I do some compressions on the tissue there. I might scrub that tissue a little bit up, down, side to side, round and round. Just rehydrating those tissues, bringing in some compression into the tissues, which is stretching them, but rehydrating, meaning nutrition in, toxins out. So then I just compress that, I hold it, I decompress it, and then blood flow. And it's like that joint is free. And usually my client says, my headache is going away. My headache is gone. Something like that, maybe? Simple, right? With a little ball. Never know, tension, right? What tension does to us. So, this little ball is not squishy. It's got a little give, but it's a firmer ball. I love this ball because if you look at the joints here, right? You can see the bones of the hand, the knuckles here. if I put this ball between my knuckles, you can see when I squeeze that ball, I'm literally stretching those bones apart. So those adductor muscles, those muscles between those bones are stretching apart. Then I decompress, squeeze, open, let go, 3 to 5. And I tell you, I can do this little hand release in about 5 minutes. Pretty basic. The trickier one is right there. And again, this joint, this line, we need to decompress this line. This is a really important area. Okay, so that's your basic hand release. Woo, blood flow. I like that feeling a lot. So one more little trick. You might not have ever seen one of these. You know, my good friend Jenna, she introduced me to some of this newer rolling. Her mother is a renowned hand occupational therapist. So she uses these little tricky things, and so I've brought them into my Restore the neck and shoulder courses. But they're scrubbers, they're joint scrubbers, and so you just bring them up and down, and it feels really nice, but also it's rehydrating the connective tissues at the joint so that the joints can then function better. And of course you would do all 5 fingers. So now I've got all this fluid, it's all pooled in my hand. This is a good thing, it's a good feeling. So now I'm gonna do a flushing technique to push all that fluid up through my arm, to my shoulder, to my neck. So often when we do these courses, we do assessments so that you can compare and contrast the efficacy of what we're doing. I'm just going to back up here so you guys can really see how I do this. I'm going to do both arms together. You could certainly do them one at a time, but I want you to watch how I turn my hand down. And what I'm doing with the roller is I'm hooking into the tissue. So quite frankly, I'm stretching the tissue around these forearm bones. As I do that, I just roll forward and then I flip and I grab that tissue. So I'm stretching it the other way and I go the other way. So I snatch, grab, roll that way. Ooh, snatch, grab, roll this way. I'm just going to keep doing this because this feels really good. I have a friend, she's a physical therapist, a manual therapist. She works with her hands all day, every day. So these techniques, they've saved her life. I mean, really and truly keep her practicing, you know. But you think about your, your friends that, you see their joints, you can just see them, right? If they did something like this, even just this forearm rolling, amazing. So that's the Restore the Neck and Shoulder. There's a lot more to that workshop. Of course, we always bring in the core because if we don't, then the neck is just going to take over. My joke is that the neck thinks it's your core. And I can usually tell, again, when I see these prominent muscles, I'm like, okay, well, I need to do my neck thing, my hand thing, and then I need to repattern on the reformer, get them diaphragmatically breathing and accessing their core. So that's the strategy. Those are the techniques. So thank you for listening. I'm at Club Pilates. Come to my Restore class.